Alright, hello folks. This is Alan recording another Magic the Gathering Arena best out of one ranked draft. Even though the season is about to start tomorrow, and I could again just start from the very beginning and move back to Mythic. And then we have 7 hours left. I still think I want to just play for, just for funsies, because it doesn't really matter, honestly, because I don't really care about the Mythic qualifier. I don't play Standard at all. I don't give a crap about it, and I only play limited, so I mean, might as well just get some games going. And I'm feeling War to Spark. There's just a lot of fun combinations and puzzles, and archetypes in that set. Even though the bombs, there tends to be a lot of rare, uncommon, and mythic bombs, and the power level is a lot more higher than Throne of Eldraine and a little bit less balance. I just want to have some fun for now, so yeah, let's fire this off. Make a nice, insightful video for those who are learning to draft better. So let's begin. Pack one, pick one. What is our rare? Sarkhan is definitely a bomb. The moment it comes out into the battlefield, you can honestly just -3 loyalty to create a 4/4 red dragon creature right away. And not only that, but if Sarkhan doesn't get answered right away, it can start. It can turn itself and also other planeswalkers I control into 4/4 red dragon creatures and eventually clock the opponent and win the game from there. It's also nice to passive abilities whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control. For every dragon that's on the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to that creature. So if you're able to get two creatures, 2 dragons onto the battlefield, you can deal 2 damage to a creature that's attacking already. Even then, the 1 dragon can prevent 1 toughness creatures from attacking. Most most of the time, the opponents tend to overlook this passive ability and they charge in with a 1 toughness creature, and therefore it gets pinged off by Sarkhan. Um, so you gotta keep in mind, most people don't really play around this planeswalker. It is incredibly powerful. There aren't too many dragons in this set, I don't think. Haven't seen any, in fact. So usually the dragon triggers that you're gonna get are from the tokens that you generate yourself by minusing Sarkhan. But definitely a powerful planeswalker and a great first pick. Looking at the uncommons, the one that really stand out is Cyclops Electromancer. Has a nice blue-red or blue-black payoff card, depending on the amount of instants and sorcerers you have in your deck. The more you have, the higher the upside of the Cyclops Electromancer, since it's a nice 2-for-1. It enters the battlefield and this destroys a target creature. If you have enough payoffs for this, usually you want to play this in blue-red to maximize the potential, but you can still play this in red-blue for the most part. In red-green or red-white is not going to be as exciting, since those are primarily creature-heavy decks. Therefore, you're not going to get too much value, and you're not going to use too many instances or sorceries to fill up your graveyard. So, but anyways, this is a good card. I don't know if it's first pickable though. I want to talk about Ajani. Ajani isn't too amazing in this set, since the life gain archetype isn't all that great. Usually black white is the one that's leaning towards a little bit towards life gain, but even then, you don't get too much great life gain payoff cards too often. White black is looking to be primarily aggressive. Unless you open something like Sorin, for example, the rare planeswalker in this set, this Ajani isn't going to be super amazing. But other than that, I can't really see this in any other archetype except black green. At the end of the day, it's just going to be a 2/2 for the most part. Looking at the commons, the one that really stands out is just Giant's Greeting as a flexible removal spell in single red. Would probably be my first pick if Sarkhan wasn't in this pack, just to just stay open over taking the more powerful card being Cyclops Electromancer that wants you to commit to 2 colors right away. Just a straight up solid fast removal spell that's very cheap, and Describe One ability is relevant since it can help you fix your draw steps. But yeah, it would be a mistake not taking Sarkhan in this first pack. It's just going to be one of those busted rares that just wins you the game once you slam it down for the most part. Um, and has very few weaknesses, of course. So let's start it off with a Broken Planeswalker. Alright, after Sargon, what do we have? On Nixos, the Hate Twisted can set us up for a red-black sacrifice deck. I can't imagine playing Nixos in any other deck besides black-red. It can be fine in black-blue, maybe, but 5 mana, draw 2 by destroying a mass token is pretty pricey for what it does. You usually want to use this as a finisher in red-black to basically to basically not only destroy the opponent's creature but deal point little points of damage onto the opponent. And usually in black red you're looking to be very aggressive, so the damage does matter. There's the Balt's Rager, which is a good 2-drop. 2 mana 1/2. Not exciting as a body, but the fact that it can trade up and pump itself is nice. The fact that it has kind of like a death rattle trigger, where whenever it dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Seems pretty nice. Pretty good above average 2-drop. I think this card is quite solid. Challenger Troll is also very solid as a curve topper in a green deck. This card is really hard to block, since only 1 creature can usually get in front of it. You would need something with 5 toughness, 5 power to actually relevant to trade off with this. And then, the more counters you put on this, and the more you grow this challenger even larger, it's going to be incredibly hard to deal with. And looking at the commons, the best ones that stand out is just Omnix's Cruelty, as pretty much the best common in this whole entire set. 3 mana, instant speed, give a creature -5/-5 right away is already powerful, and then also exiles. So it can pretty much deal with everything, even this Challenger Troll at 3 mana. So really, I think I prefer Omnixus over the Cruelty over the Planeswalker. I think I prefer the removal spell over Challenger Troll. Now the question is, do we take it over to Balt's Rager, which is a good 2-drop? Since we're already gearing up to be heavy red with, our primary color is going to be red with Sarkhan, the Masterless. Omnix's Cruelty is definitely a better card than Balt's Rager, but Balt's Rager is definitely an above average 2-drops. Good 2-drops are usually very difficult to find in Limited, and usually if you can curve out very nicely with lots of good 2-drops in the early game, that can outweigh a single target removal spell like Omnix's Cruelty. But these two are close. I wouldn't fault anyone for taking Omnix's Cruelty, and it definitely seems a little bit strange, but I'm leaning towards the Balt's Rager, just as a good 2-drop that goes well with Sarkhan in the same deck. Simply, I just want to keep my primary color as red, and even then, Balt's Rager isn't a bad card. It's definitely an above average 2-drop, a very good 2-drop. And it could still keep us flexible. We don't necessarily need to commit ourselves to black-red, sacrifice right away. We could end up in a better 2-color combination. While Omnix's Cruelty, it is splashable, no doubt, and it does keeps our option open. But really, I don't really want to abandon the Sarkhan. I don't want to think about abandoning it at this point, so it might be a mistake, but I think I'm going to take the risk and just take the Balt's Rager, since it kind of fits well with red already, and I really want to, I'm highly prioritizing it due to this Sarkhan, which can just win the game by itself. If we keep red as our primary color, it won't be too hard to cast. Yeah, Cruelty can be splashed, but usually in red you're looking to be very aggressive. That's also another thing I want to point out, and therefore, you don't really want to spend too much time in a draft picking up cards like Guild Globe and mana fixing when you're just looking to curve out and beat down the very aggressive small creatures to kind of close out the game. Just trying to make your mana worse to splash for a single removal spell can be a bit of a detriment. But yeah, again, wouldn't fault anyone for taking Omnixus, maybe move towards black-red sacrifice for the most part. And there's a case that you do abandon Sarkhan if red isn't going, but yeah, I think this Balt's Rager is good enough that I'm just going to take it here. Right, so now what do we have? We have Mowu, Loyal Companion for the Proliferate decks. Not going to work too well for our first 2 picks, since red doesn't tend to proliferate too often, but it's great in usually white-green or blue-green. But other than that, I don't really see myself taking this card. There's Paradise Druid if we want to move into red-green, perhaps. Just as a way to ramp out big creatures. Red-green, the archetype in red-green that you want to go for is usually the power 4 and greater, and there are plenty of curve toppers that you want to ramp out with the Paradise Druid, and if we move into red green, it would be an excellent 2-drop. Has hexproof, and it can help us get those big creatures out early, so we can get those power 4 or greater triggers going. Definitely a solid 2-drop. There's Vraska, also as an excellent card. Not a very aggressive card, but can be still very flexible. We could still end up in red-black or red-green, and Vraska can be pretty solid just as a nice card that creates those 1/1 assassin creature tokens that can pressure planeswalkers or trade off for bigger creatures. So this looking solid. I wouldn't also mind a Palm Bright Druid as an excellent 2-drop for the proliferate archetype, but even then, by itself, it can put a 1/1 counter on the creature right away, so that's looking good. None of the red cards are too exciting. There's also Harrow Dreadhorde as a pretty good 4-drop, which I like a lot, since it's really difficult to get off the battlefield, since when it dies, it also amasses 2, which is very powerful. So really, I think it's just between these 4 cards. I think I prefer Paradise Druid over my first Palm Bright Druid. I think Paradise Druid has a lot more upside than Harrow the Dreadhorde. Now the question is, do I take Paradise Druid or Vraska? Vraska can still be pretty good if we end up in red-black Sacrifice, since it creates those 1/1 Death Touch tokens, and also leaves back a Planeswalker that we can sacrifice. And it can be okay in red-green, not the best, since it's not a power 4 or greater creature. But sometimes just creating those 1/1 assassin creatures to pressure the opponent's planeswalkers can be really nice, but would require double green at the very least. So it's really between these two at the very least, and I don't know. I think I might just be leaning towards the Paradise Druid. I mean, Vraska would give us options for black-red, and it would be a pretty good card in black-red, but in in red-green, it's not going to be that amazing. I mean, Vraska could still be playable in red-green, I guess, and it's pretty good in red-black, so I guess if we take it, I might as well head towards red-black. Paradise Druid would move us more into red-green, so this is kind of like a preference pick. I think the more flexible option would be Vraska, so I might just take it. Paradise Druid is more narrow, would just commit me towards red-green right away, and I would need to commit to the power 4 greater archetype, which it's a good archetype if you can support it, of course, but Vraska kind of gives us that flexibility. We could still be red-green, red-black, and red-green, it would still be pretty okay. Red-black is going to be where it's at its best, and we can still be in that color combination, so sure, why not? Let's just take a flexible choice here, and Vraska is still a good, powerful card. And it works well with Sarkhan too, I suppose, since if it's on the battlefield already, Sarkhan can also make this into a 4/4 dragon if I want to use the plus ability. So I can see an upside for that, so let's take it.
Time to step out of the shadows.
Alright, and now what do we have? There's an Augur of Bolas. If we're moving to red, blue, instants and sorceries, but not an amazing card from my experience. I think the card is only good if you have a lot of instances and sorceries. It can't fetch out our planeswalkers or creatures, so I highly doubt that I want this card. There's Contentious Plan, which goes in the same red-blue Spells Matters deck. I think that the cards we're looking at are Invading Manicore, Turret Ogre, potentially maybe the red-green cards, and maybe this Iron Bully. Iron Bully is not going to be as best in a red deck, since you're mostly looking to put +1/+1 counters onto proliferate in the proliferate archetype, and red isn't the proliferate archetype. It's more of an aggressive slanted deck. I think I want to take the red card, since that's going to be mostly my primary color as of right now, as opposed to the green, which, you know, we could still be in red-black at the very least. So it's either Turret Ogre and Invading Manicore. Invading Manicore is a curve topper, so you don't want to prioritize those too much, since you usually get them later in the pack, and 1 or 2 can be fine. And they tend to wheel, and we can even get a curve topper in our second color if we have to. Turret Ogre is just an okay 4-drop. Better in red-green, of course, but it's still fine and reasonable. I think I'll just take it, since it's a cheaper creature, and we would preferably want more 4-drops than late game curve topper like Invading Manicore. So not a very exciting pick, but I'll take it anyways. Alright, now what do we have? There's Dreadmalkin if we want to set up for a red-black sacrifice deck, which is a pretty good card if you can get in the early game and if you can set it up. It's really nice since a 3/3 Menacer is pretty decent, and it can also sacrifice Planeswalkers that have low loyalty. Um, and it can pressure the opponent early on by getting in some evasive damage, so I do like Dreadmalkin in a red-black sacrifice deck. Devouring Hellion is okay, but again, it's going to be its best in the red-black deck. I would prefer maybe the Dreadmalkin as a safer first pick, simply because I haven't been impressed by this card too much. Even if you sacrifice one, I guess it's a 4/4, which is fine, but you really want to make this a little bit larger, and it can still be answered, so don't know about that. Total Invasion would be nice in the red-black sacrifice deck as a way to make a 1/1 mass creature and also get a 1/1 at the end of the day. So really in this pack we're looking to be primarily, most of these cards are looking to be best in red-black. Grim Initiate as sacrifice fodder, On-Crop Enabler as a sacrifice initiator, Total Invasion as an enabler, and Devouring Hellion and Dreadmalkin as a a bit of a payoff like on Crop Invader, but I think I like the Dreadmalkin here just as a cheap turn 1 play, easy to play cast on turn 1, and then you can sacrifice the creatures later to kind of get value off of this. Dreadmalkin, Devouring Hellion is a little bit more expensive and takes a little bit more time to set up since it's a 3-drop. So yeah, let's try the Dreadmalkin, maybe just move into red-black at the end of the day. And here, some pretty decent cards. Spark Reaper is pretty nice in the red-black sacrifice deck. Does get pretty bad multiples, but it's a nice mana sink in the late game in case you need to kind of sacrifice some small creatures to maybe draw some cards. Vraska's Finisher would be fine too in red-black since it looks to be a pretty aggressive archetype. Usually, if you manage to deal one damage with the ping from Tibalt's Rager at a creature, you can follow up with Vraska's Finisher to kill it off. Even then, 3 mana 3/2 isn't the end of the world. It's still a pretty decent body. And Invading Manticore is a curve topper. Vivian's Grizzly as a 3-drop. So it's just really between these two. And I think I might just be leaning towards Vraska's Finisher as kind of like a pseudo removal spell in case I need it. Red-black is looking to be quite aggressive, and you're looking to attack quite often, and sometimes it's great to just follow up with a creature that just kills another creature in case you are kind of lacking in removal. Spark Reaper would also be fine, but I think I would like to have my first copy of Vraska before my first copy of Spark Reaper, since Spark Reaper gets bad multiples. You don't really want too many of these. They're not good attackers, they're okay blockers, and they're usually going to be a bit of a late game card that you want to use to kind of get value off of. So I guess we kind of took the Cruelty over the Tibalt's Rager, which, the Cruelty would definitely be a better card that we could be using right now, but a Tibalt's Rager was still fine since we're gearing up to be red-black. So, yeah, let's see. Yeah, let's take it here. Makes sense. Aid the Fallen, I wouldn't mind to fetch back either Sarkhan or Vraska. It can be really good in our deck. Also, Sorin's Thirst can be a fine one of, but the double black can be kind of sketchy. I don't really like this card in multiples, so not the best removal spell either. So I think I like the Aid the Fallen since we have 2 Planeswalkers that this can support. Here, it's either On-Crop Vader or Typh Bear Giant. Typh Bear Giant is a pretty decent curve topper that replaces itself, but again, it is a curve topper that can get quite expensive. Bolt Bend is something you won't primarily want to play in the red-green deck with lots of 4 power or greater. We're shaping up to be red-black with all these black commons that we're taking, so I highly doubt we're going to need this. But it's pretty good if you can get a powerful red-green deck going, since this is kind of like a powerful counter spell, which not only counters the spell, but also redirects it onto another target. So it's definitely very powerful if you can get this going. But I think I like the On-Crop Invader just to have a cheap 3-drop, so we can kind of set up for a very low aggressive curve in the red-black sacrifice deck, and also pretty decent attacker too in that type of deck. And then Typh Bear Giant, maybe we can pick one up later, so let's take it here. And with my Sorin's Thirst, not amazing, but otherwise I don't see myself playing anything else here. And Toll is excellent, nice pickup. Creates a 1/1 amass creature token that we can sacrifice. Also a decent 1/1 at the end of the day. This card isn't great. If it didn't have the amass 1, it would be a pretty bad card since you don't really want to play 3 mana as a slow card just to get a 1/1 from their hand. But the amass 1 is really nice since this can be a chump blocker and has a lot of utility. So yeah, happy to see this. So red-black is definitely the place to be. Don't have any good 2-drops. I could just take the Dust Mantle. Not a big fan of Blind Blast or Samut Sprint in this deck. Maybe just need to fill a 2-drop, and Dust Mantle can be fine. Now we can take our Curve Topper with as invading mana core. Iron Bully could also be sacrifice fodder, but 3 mana for a 1/1 isn't amazing. I'd rather have the Grim Initiates, the 1 mana 1/1s with first strike that you can sacrifice that leave behind an amass creature, and those are better sacrifice targets. But I'm happy to see a Curve Topper here. And there we go. Grim Initiate as the 1 mana 1/1 sacrifice a card that we need for our enablers. On-Crop Invader, Dread Malkin, and future cards, maybe even Heartfire if we pick one up. So red-black definitely seems to be the place to be. So if I've taken the Palmbright Druid, I would have missed out on a nice Vraska that could have moved me into red-black. So I'm happy that I kind of stayed flexible with the Vraska. Otherwise, we'd be kind of we'd be left out with a Paradise Druid that would have basically been just sideboarded out for the most part, but Vraska is very powerful in the red-black, so still happy that I kind of chose the more flexible option over the more high variance pick. That being said, we did miss out on a Nexus Cruelty, but Tibalt's Rager is definitely a great 2-drop in this deck regardless. But yeah, red-black is the place to be. I don't think we want to move into any colors, so all we really need to do is pick up more 2-drops, more early game, more sacrifice payoff cards, and a little bit better removal, and this deck should be very good. So let's move on. And now looking at this pack, is there any cards for us? Single Combat, kind of awkward board wipe in white, but it's pretty decent as a sideboard card if you need it. If you're like playing a white deck and your opponent's playing lots of giant big creatures. I mean, even then, if your opponent's playing lots of big giant creatures, Single Combat isn't all that amazing since the opponent's going to be left with a bigger creature than yours. So it's better off if, let's just say you're playing against another aggressive white deck, and then if you have a bigger creature on board, Single Combat can be a fine situational board wiping to kind of give you the advantage. But other than that, it's a bit of a weird card, to be honest. Narsid's fine. Totally reasonable 2-for-1 at times. Rescue Sphinx is excellent. Tyrant Scorn is also great. Callous Dismissal is great, but I don't mind a Chandra's Power Helix. Not the best removal spell, but it could just replace a Sorin's Thirst at the end of the day. Sometimes you just want to deal 1 damage to something, 2 damage to something, or deal 1 damage to 2 targets, and this can be fine. Other than that, there's also Grim Initiate as more sacrifice fire, but these tend to wheel in the later packs. We don't really want to prioritize them and first pick them. Another Invade Mana Core, but yeah, pretty disappointing first pack. I think in the pack 1 pick 1 scenario, I would love the Rescue Sphinx as a nice evasive threat. It also can reset the loyalty counters on our Planeswalkers if we pick them up. Pretty powerful card. But here we're already in red-black. I don't think we want to move into blue-black given all the stuff that we've taken. Don't want to give up on Sarkhan, and all these black cards look really synergistic and reasonable. So I think Chandra's Power Helix is the pick here. Alright, now we have a Burning Prophet. That's a good 2-drop. The best card in this pack is Evolution Sage by far for the Proliferate deck. Nothing else here. Spring Prophet is a totally fine, reasonable 2-drop. It's pretty good since it can improve our draw steps. A 2-mana 1/3 is a good blocker, and when it gets pumped as a 2-powered creature, it's a pretty decent fighter too. So I think I'll take it here. Not the most exciting pack 1, pack 2 pick 1s or 2, but it's fine. I guess, don't think I need another Turret Ogre. There's a Typhbear Giant as another clunky 6-drop, which we already have. Could see the case of taking Vampire Opportunist as maybe a little bit of early game pressure. Not the most amazing at 1 toughness, but it can be a fine mana sink in the late game in case you're flooding out. You can maybe deal the finishing blows by draining the opponent. There's a Wonder Strike if we want to splash, but red-black isn't looking to splash. So I think I just snatch it up here. Again, not very exciting, pretty bad pick overall, but I think I'll just take it. And another Burning Prophet seems fine here. Nothing else for us. And Heartfire, that's excellent with the Grim Initiates. Other than that, nothing else. Best card is like Sunblade Angel. Here, I could just take the Mana Globe. I don't see myself ever playing Goblin Assailant or Davriel's Shadowfuge, for example. I mean, it could be fine in the sideboard if I want to deal some damage, but overall, you really want to develop the board or remove a creature. You don't really want a card that I mean, it's a fine 2-for-1 that can drain the opponent, I guess. And Gill Globe doesn't really offer us much unless we're kind of splashing for a very powerful card, which, I mean, I guess we still could be, even though we don't really want to splash in this type of deck. I mean, I might as well take it since these tend to wheel anyways, so. I guess a second Invading Mana Core. I guess there's a Wanderer Strike we could kind of speculate on since our removal is kind of bad. Maybe we pick up a little bit more mana fixing. It can be weird, but we can try it out. We already have an Invading Mana Core at the very least. And that's, again, 6 drops tend to wheel. Total Invasion's excellent. Would love my second one. Makes sense in this deck. And another Grim Initiate looks fine as good sacrifice fodder in a play in the early game. So I think we take it. Nothing here. Nothing here. Alright, so this pack was pretty disappointing. Not too amazing red and black cards, but at least we kind of have some good... At least we kind of summed up our 2 drops here. So if we kind of build our deck, I don't want to play Dust Mantle. Could play the Gill Globe or Wanderer Strike. We'll see. I think the 2s are looking good. I might cut the Vampire Opportunist if I find a better 2-drop. But overall, not very exciting. The removal was okay, but at the very least, if we don't pick up better ones, we might have to end up playing the Sorin's Thirst. Final pack, we could finally solidify and pick up a late game Curve Topper if we need to. Some better 2-drops. Better removal overall, and our deck should be solid. But yeah, this pack 2 wasn't too exciting. So let's move on. Right, pack 3, pick 1. The Fairy doesn't make sense, so we're not taking it. Looking at the black and red cards, I'm kind of liking this Raging Kronk. There's a Spellgorger Weird, but Spellgorger Weird is going to be best in a blue-red deck. That being said, how many non-creature spells do we have? There's a Heartfire, Pyrohelix, Sorin's Thirst, Aid the Fallen, maybe a Gill Globe, double Totally Invasion, Vraska, and Sarkhan. So it can still be okay, but will require a little bit of work to get going. In this type of deck, I think it makes sense to just take the Raging Kronk as a good 3-drop that can follow up a 2-drop, and it can definitely give an opponent a beating right away. I mean, Spellgorger Weird would also be fine, but I mean, you usually want to get at least 2 triggers to make this particularly good. With 1 trigger, it's not enough. And we don't really want to just fire off a removal spell just to get this to grow if the opponent doesn't have anything we want to kill. But it's a good card. I mean, I guess we do have enough, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. The Total Invasions can be nice to follow up with the Spellgorger Weird, so I guess it's not that bad. And sometimes Kronk can be a little bit bad since if you don't have another creature on the battlefield, it can't really attack, while Spellgorger Weird can just constantly keep growing, I guess, and then keep getting attacks. And even as a 3/3, it's almost close to a 4/3 at the very least. So I think Spellgorger Weird might just get the nod over Raging Kronk. So we'll take it. Here, could take an Unlikely Aid as a combat trick. Could take Honor Godfair as a bit of a value engine that also creates a sacrifice fodder, which isn't bad. Donry's Ambush would be pretty hard to splash. So it's just between these 2 cards, and I might just be leaning Honor to Godpharaoh since we don't really have too much card draw going on. There's occasion where we flood out and we just want to discard something that we don't want to play, and this can be very nice. It also leaves back a 1/1 Amass token, which we can use as sacrifice. Unlikely A wouldn't be bad in an aggressive deck like this, as an okay pump trick at the very least, but I think Honor has a little bit more upside. Okay, could take a Shriek Diver here. I wouldn't mind it just to have a flyer and some way to pressure the opponent's Planeswalkers. Our Druids are getting kind of stacked, but I can still see myself playing one of these. It can also just deal little points of damage in the early game if we need to. Otherwise, Unlikely 8 is a mopey combat trick, so let's take it. Another Toll. I think I like another On-Crop Invader just as another sacrifice outlet and payoff. We already have double Toll already. We have a lot of 1/1 sacrifice fodder that I just need something to kind of make this work. Goblin Salt Team isn't particularly amazing, so I'll take this. And I could use another Burning Prophet. I think that's good. More better 2-drops. So let's take it over the other Unlikely Aid, which I think it's going to wheel for the most part. Could make a case for Goblin Assault Team. Our Drees are looking stacked. Don't really want to play too many 3-drops. And Vraska is at the very least situational removal at the very least. Could just take Bond of Passion, in fact, as kind of a late game finisher, I guess. But it is quite expensive for this deck. Maybe we do run the Assault Team, and maybe it can pressure the opponents a bit. I guess we can take a Raging Kronk now over a bunch of expensive cards that we don't care about. Another Burning Prophet looks good. Alright, and I guess another Shriek Diver. Don't think Senwood Sprint is too good in our deck. And Unlikely 8, I think we'll end up playing. Maybe a second one, we'll see. Don't think I'm playing double Assault Team, but I can see myself playing one. Okay, so this draft turned out to be pretty decent. We did come ourselves to do colors right away, so we did miss out on some other potential archetypes, but red-black was really flowing through the first pack, so it seemed very open. I think I like my 1-drops. I can cut the Guild Globe and the Wanderer Strike. I think the splash is going to be a little bit too difficult. The 5s look good. The 4s, even though Goblin Assault Team isn't amazing, I think we kind of have a hole at 4, so I think I'm willing to keep this. I think I see myself cutting Vampire Opportunist. See myself cutting Unlikely Aid. Could see myself playing 1 since we're kind of lacking removal. Aid to Fallen looks good. Heartfire, Chandra Pyhelix, and even a Soren's Thirst since our removal is pretty bad. And I think we're going to end up cutting 3-drops since it's looking really stacked at the very least. Could just cut one of each. Could have cut a Shriek Diver, an On-Crop Invader, maybe a Toll. And then we should have a diverse range of 3-drops. Could see myself cutting a Burning Prophets, 1, 2, 3. But I think I like my 2s. Could see myself cutting a land. So now curve is looking primarily pretty low. So how many more cuts? 2 more cuts at the very least. I do like these 2 since I'm looking to be very aggressive and I want to curve out. So I think we have to focus on cutting the 3-drops at the very least. I do like the card draw of Honor. I guess I could cut the Unlikely 8, but our removal is very lacking. We would need some Pump Trick to kind of get across the opponent at the very least. Guess I just cut the Kronk. It's a good follow-up from turn 2. Maybe I could just cut the, since I'm going 16, maybe I just cut the Last of Behemoth, since it's kind of clunky at the very least. And maybe just cut a Turd Ogre, since it's kind of slow and expensive. I do want the card draw engine with the Honor. I do like the Toll as a fine 1-for-1. Do like the Spellgorger Weird. Do like the Vraska. Do like the Shriek Diver. Yeah, it could just be the Ogre, since it's kind of clunky. Maybe I can go down 15 lands, as crazy as it seems. Maybe it's possible. Maybe I could just cut the Invading Mana Core and call it a day. And just go 16 lands with Sorin as our curve topper, and then a bunch of these spells. The 2-drops, 1-drops look good. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think this is good. 16 lands, low curve. I might as well just play a second Goblin Assault Team over the Turd Ogre now, I guess, since we're looking to be aggressive anyways, and I might as well kind of cheese the opponent out with some aggressive cards. Invading Mana Core is fine, but quite expensive. Don't need a second On-Crop. Don't need a second Toll. Don't need a second Skydiver. So yeah, I think this is just our deck. And what's our mana base? Slightly favoring red, but I think I need kind of like the black anyways to kind of do it, because I need double black for Sorin's Thirst, Unlikely 8, Aid to Fallen Dread Malkin. It could be a bit of a mistake. Maybe I could just go 9-7 at the end of the day. Then, I mean, the Sorin's Thirst is going to get pretty bad if it's 9-7, and in that case, what do I want to? What else do I want to play in this deck? Could just use a second Unlikely Aid as a way to have more combat tricks, since we're looking to be quite aggressive. Um, since Thorn's Thirst is not going to be particularly well if we're going lights on black, that we can make a case for the second unlikely aid, and maybe we can just go, I guess, 9/7 at the very least, so we don't end up drawing swamps, and we can just cast our red cards profitably. So I think this is our deck. I guess Vraska needs double black too, but I think we'll eventually get there with 7 red and 16 lands. So a bit of a weird deck. So let's kind of reanalyze. Don't think I need this. Don't think I need this. Don't think I need this. Don't think I need Shriek Diver. Don't think I need a second Toll. Lasdiv is clunky. Yeah, I think we'll just try this out. Hopefully it can go the distance.